Hello and welcome to a tutorial about how I do colorwork or fair isle knitting. I knit with the yarn always in my right hand as a thrower, and I don't change this up when I do colorwork. I have tried to learn to knit with one yarn in my right hand and one yarn in my left, but I could never get the tension right. So finally I gave up and I said, okay, I just have to figure out how to do them both with my right hand. And I've achieved a way to do it pretty evenly, and I've also had a bit of practice, so oops, sorry about that. I'm better at it. Certainly my first project was not the best, so if you're having tension issues, keep trying. You will figure it out, I promise. You will get there. So, one of the things, normally you see me knitting on double pointed needles, but when I do color work, I like to use two circulars because I have less joins, and joins are really the part where I have the most problem with puckering, with tension issues. So the less joins, the better, and I use two circulars, or you could use magic loop to achieve the same issue of less, not issue, but the same solution of having less joins. The other thing I do with colorwork is I knit my project inside out. What this means is that as I'm knitting, the yarn has to travel further, the loose yarn, the yarn that you're not working with, has to travel further around the project so you have less tension issues. It will be looser and it will leave these nice, relatively big loops that will kind of settle down and settle in and not be too bad once the project is stretched out. You can see they just they don't interfere with the stretch of the stitches, but they're not remaining so loose that you get your toes or your fingers or whatever stuck in them as you're putting on your garment. So normally when you're knitting on two circulars or with magic loop, your working needle is the front one, right? So as you're knitting away with your, oh, sorry about all the craziness here, you're knitting away and you're knitting along the front. But what happens when you turn your work inside out is that your active needle is the back one. Other than that, it's exactly the same process. You're still knitting, you're not purling, but you're working on the back needle instead of on the front needle. That is the only difference. So I'm just going to do a few stitches and show you after I get untangled here. There's a lot of tangling with two circular needles, I'll tell you that. So I'm knitting on the back needle with my work inside out. Okay, it's not so visible because I don't have too much done here, but you can see what I'm doing. The other thing I do is I keep my two balls of yarn very separate. This one here is my color A, and this one here is my color B. That's just my personal preference. You can put them however you want, but I do find that it helps to keep them separate because this mess of tangle in the middle is very easy to separate when your balls of yarn are far away from each other. That's just a little personal preference. The other thing I do is I keep one of the yarns, always the same yarn, so you have to remember which one goes in which position on your fingers, but one yarn I keep over my index finger the way I normally would for knitting, and the other yarn I keep under. So when I want to work with the yarn that's over my finger, I simply knit as I normally would, but when I want to work with the one that's under, I twist my fingers towards myself and wrap it that way. So it takes a little bit longer, but it keeps everything nice and separate and slows me down enough to pay attention to tension. So I'm just going to do a few stitches so you can see what's what. So I need to work right now with the one that's under my index finger, the darker yarn. So I simply wrap it like that. I'm going to slip my stitch marker over. And then before I knit my second stitch, I tug a little bit, but not too much. I want to make sure that that yarn that I've drawn forward is not too tight, but also not too loose. So I'll just keep knitting with bringing the yarn, twisting my hand so that my palm is facing me, and then bringing that yarn up and over my needle again. Now I need to change colors, so I'll simply return my hand to its normal position, which twists the yarns over each other, and I will knit as I normally would, like that. And again, a color switch. So twist my hand towards me, bring that yarn under my needle and over it, slip off, under, over, slip off, behind, in front, slip off, behind, in front, slip off, behind, in front, slip off, and color change. So switch my hand position so that I'm in my normal knitting position now because I want to use the yarn that's over my finger. Behind, in front, pull off, behind, in front, pull off, same as I normally would knit. Again, color change. So this is my normal. Switch my hand so that my palm is facing me and this color that's under my finger goes over, and come in behind, switch off, behind. And sometimes I'll pull both, like I just did there. Both of the yarns go over the needle accidentally. Well, I just do a little flick of my finger to get the other one off, and that's it. And really, repeat ad nauseum, because that's as simple as it is. And you can see that with practice, you probably won't be, you'll probably have big loops or tight loops the first time, so just go slower as you first start this. But you can see that the loops are loose enough that when I pull the knitting apart, like when I stretch it out, it doesn't interfere with the stretch of my stitches. And yet, when it's not stretched, it's not loose enough that I can stick fingers or toes or anything through it and get all tangled up in there. So that's it. Hopefully that was helpful to you. And as usual, contact me if you have any questions. Thank you. Bye.